as they are, not as they correct themselves, or not as they change anything about how they are, right? So even if a person were to help, or a person were to stiffen their neck or hyperextend their knees, I actually don't say anything about that. I'm just telling you what I do, right? Not what you should or should not do, but just what I do or do not do. Because, you know, or, oh no, let go of your shoulder, or anything like that. I want to see where we can arrive through our touch, right? Because it's like what you said at the very beginning, just as long as you don't say anything like, what did you say? You're willing to be the
insulting.
Insult me, right? And so, you know, that's pretty blatant when it's an insult, but it's insidious, if I'm using the word correctly. English is my second language. Insidious means like it creeps in. Insidious. If I tell a person something like, well, relax your jaw, right, or soften your jaw, because immediately that puts the person like, uh-oh, you know something about me that I don't. Right? So I actually, the more skill I developed in working in FI, the more what I do is I note it, and then I just keep working and pace and see. At some point, let's say a person, and I'm not speaking, it's not your job. It's something else now. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I don't even know if there is in it. But what I do is then I'll say, when the change has already happened, then I will say like, oh, what does your jaw feel like now? What does your jaw feel like now?
Oh.
And I think I don't know who I was talking to, maybe Claire, because we were doing this drive together, and there's a woman that for a long time, multiple sessions, I just was dying to talk to her about how she held in the middle here and how she didn't breathe. Right? And I was also feeling very inadequate in not knowing how to work in the sessions in such a way that would change by itself, until it finally did. And then, after that, she stood up and she said, oh my God, I feel the ground. I didn't realize I hadn't been feeling the ground. I mean, of course she's felt that she has not been floating, but so then we could, yeah. And the thing is, of course, is like, do people come long enough? Or do we feel like, I mean, there's so much packed into what we say or what we do not say to people. And what they want us. There are people who want to be told what's wrong.
And if they're not there already, and you tell them, it doesn't have any meaning.
No, it has no meaning. And I remember once, like as I said before, I had lots of lessons with Mark. I actually, in the third year of my training, I realized that as smart as everybody thought themselves to be, who were teaching us, that they were never going to show us a series of FIs. And I thought that was a pedagogical disaster, because actually I really wanted to be able to work in a series. So a friend and I went down to Mark and we had 2 weeks of lessons. And we watched each other's lessons. And there was one point in which after a lesson, Mark could see that something was finally beginning to happen. I'm going to call it a backward diagonal, but I couldn't sense it. And the more he was giving me clues to sense that, it didn't matter. I couldn't sense it. And, I felt comfortable enough with Mark to say, Mark, we have to stop, because I'm getting really irritated and very angry with you, because you're seeing something about me that I'm not.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much that I wasn't up to par, like I couldn't sense it. It was that somebody could see something about me that I could not. And that was the weirdest kind of thing. It was like voyeurism of a different nature. And it wasn't a bad thing he was pointing out, right? It wasn't a criticism, it was a good thing. But it was completely out of my, Anyway, then some months later, we had the 4th year, and I there set up a series with Dennis of lessons. And you know, Dennis does something so minimal that, well, you wouldn't know what he was doing. But I stood up and I walked after one lesson. I went, oh my God, I can sense that, right? It evoked something, and yet it. So anyway, so that was just the last thing I wanted to say. Is like, how do we? You know, how are we with that person? Do we just let them be, let ourselves be, and not give them clues? Oh, it'd be better if you let your jaw go, or it'd be better if you did this, or better if you did that, or whatever. Anyway, yeah.
I'm sorry if it takes you way off, but I'm curious because I love the way you articulate things. When somebody comes in and says, you would be proud of me, I blah, 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 blah. I get that a lot. And I want to not insult them to say, yeah, no, I'm not proud of you, or whatever.
Right.
But I want to stay with the meaning of what it was that they felt empowered to come back and report that to me. So
Yeah.
do you get that or have anything to comment about that? You would be
Yeah,
proud.
I'm just thinking of this one client who she'll say, yeah, she's a woman with MS, and there are just a few things that if she does through the day, it really alters her walk. Well, anyway, that's, yeah. When she first arrived to see me, she walked like this. That was the only way she could lift her leg. And anyway, now she's walking, she's actually pushing off, but she has to, there's certain things that if she thinks about, like pushing off from the feet, that works, but there are certain things, if she just sits down and does a particular way of turning and acting, then she doesn't have to think about anything. The walk self-organizes. So she would be the kind of person, she'd say, you would be proud of me. This week, I did it 3 times. And what I do is I just say, and what did that do for you? Mm-hmm. I said, what did it make your walking easier? And then if she does, I go, that's exciting. Yeah. Right, so I just, that's what I do, but
no,
it
that's
depends
very
on the person.
direct, and that's a good
yeah.
piece, just to kind of, because I think I can overtalk, so what a surprise. So you know that's it. But anyway, but I like that. That's a really quick antidote. That do
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, that reminds me of a short. Okay, I have to watch it because now I can get lured into stories. But so I'll allow myself one deviation. There was a woman who came to me and she said she was from Hong Kong, and she said, you know, my father does Tai Chi, and I've watched him do Tai Chi. He's so fluid, and me, I'm stiff like a board. And I thought, oh, honey, yes, you are. You're just like no idea how stiff you are. But you know, I kept that to myself. And then after lots of ATMs and FI work and so forth. Oh, and she was married to a wonderful, sweet, but very serious Quaker man. He used to come and pick her up, and I went to a Quaker school, so we had a lot to talk about. But he was like, I just went to a Quaker school. He was a Quaker. and she also had told me that she didn't like to cook. And then one day she came after probably about 2 years of work. And, the eye contact is a very, it's not as constant in that culture as it is for me in any case. So she said to me, I have to tell you something. I was in the kitchen cooking, and there was some music on, and I found myself dancing. And I said, wow. And what did that like? What's that like? She goes, it was wonderful. And I thought, okay, so it's just like, I got a feeling the story wasn't finished. So I said, and then? She goes, and then George came down the stairs. And her whole tone of voice changed, right? And I thought, okay, I'm going to get this out of her. And I'm not going to, so I said, and then? And she goes, well, I stopped dancing. And I said, why? And she said, well, I was embarrassed. And then I decided to make eye contact, and I looked at her, and I mentioned her name, which I'll call her Jane, because that it wasn't her name. I said, Jane, the only people who deserve to be embarrassed are the ones who don't dance in the kitchen when there's something, right? And she kind of she didn't get it first, and then she got it, and she just started laughing uproariously, So it's like those kinds, and sometimes stuff comes out of your mouth that you later go, whoever put that in my head, thank you, because when presented with a case study, one never would have. Yeah. Right. So it's that thing, which is like, how do I turn this into a way to empower the person without saying, good girl that you were
Exactly.
dancing. And maybe next time you can tell George to go back up the stairs, or maybe next time you can tell George to close his eyes, or maybe next time you can dance when George is there, like, right, not try to coach them to the next thing, but somehow,
Just let it merge.
empower the life in a person, really.
Exactly.
That's kind of what it is, whatever that
And I
is.
am proud of them. And I am proud of them, so it's really.
Yeah,
fun
I
to
know, right,
Be an
right.
observer and just
Yeah,
listen to
yeah,
them.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.